They say the human eye can't process anything that flashes for less than 0.06 seconds. It's too fast, too brief for the brain to register consciously. At least, that's what I read afterward. I didn't know that before this happened. But I wish I did. This started 3 nights ago. I was up late, editing a normal video in my apartment. Nothing strange, just footage I recorded earlier that week. It was around 2:17 in the morning. I remember that specifically because I checked the time when my laptop froze. Not completely, just a small stutter in the timeline. A quick lag like the software had hit something heavy. I zoomed in to see what caused it. That's when I noticed something that didn't make sense. There was an extra frame. One single frame wedged between 2 cuts. At first, I assumed it was a rendering glitch. Corrupted frames happen, especially when you stack effects. So I zoomed in further until I could see individual frames on the timeline. Everything looked normal. Normal. Then there it was. One frame that didn't belong. It was darker than the others. Not black, just different. I stepped through it manually, frame by frame, and for exactly 0.06 seconds, there was an image. It wasn't my bedroom. It was my hallway. Dark, narrow, empty. Except it wasn't empty. At the far end, barely visible, there was a shape. Someone, standing perfectly still. I stared at it for a long time, convincing myself I was misinterpreting compression artifacts. Our brains create patterns in noise. It's normal. You see faces in clouds, figures in shadows. So I checked the original file. Nothing. Just my bedroom. I checked the raw footage again. Still nothing. But when I played the edited version at normal speed, every few seconds there was that tiny stutter, that single inserted frame. And every time I replayed it, the shape seemed closer. Not dramatically closer, not enough to immediately alarm someone, but enough that if you were looking carefully, you'd notice. Like it had taken one small step forward. I told myself I was tired. It was past 2 in the morning. Lack of sleep can distort perception, but something about it felt deliberate. So I started counting. I placed markers across the timeline and tracked every appearance. Exactly 0.06 seconds apart. Perfectly consistent. Not random. Not drifting. Every 0.06 seconds, another frame appeared. The hallway again. And each time the shape had advanced slightly. Still mostly shadow, still hard to define, but undeniably closer. Glitches don't move with intent. Artifacts don't reposition themselves, and they definitely don't follow mathematical precision. It felt like something was syncing itself to my perception. I closed the laptop. That should have been the end of it, but when the screen went black, I saw something in the reflection, standing behind me. Just for a fraction of a second, I turned around immediately. Nothing. My room was empty. Closet door closed. Bedroom door open. Hallway dark and still. I stood there, listening for any sound that didn't belong. There was nothing. So I shut everything down and decided to sleep. When I turned off the lights, the room felt heavier than usual. You ever get that feeling like the darkness isn't empty, like it has density? I lay down, and that's when I noticed something worse. Every time I blinked, something shifted. It wasn't obvious, just subtle, like objects were microscopically out of alignment. The door slightly more open, the shadows slightly deeper. At one point, I blinked, and for that fraction of darkness, I saw a silhouette beside my bed. When my eyes opened, it was gone. I froze, completely still, listening, My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. Eventually, I convinced myself it was hypnagogic imagery, the brain misfiring between wakefulness and sleep. But I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I decided to prove myself wrong. I set my phone on a tripod and recorded my room in slow motion, 240 frames per second. If something was there, slowing it down would reveal it clearly. I recorded for nearly 5 minutes. Nothing unusual happened while I was awake, but when I reviewed the footage later, stepping through it frame by frame, I saw it again. One frame empty. Next frame. It was there, closer to the camera than before, then gone again. Every 0.06 seconds. Precise. Mechanical. At one point, its face was inches from the lens. There were no features, not clearly, just the outline of something shaped like a face, but wrong, like it hadn't fully rendered, as if reality hadn't decided what it was supposed to look like yet. Slowing it down didn't make it disappear. It just gave it more room. That night, things changed. The intervals shortened. I don't know how that's possible, but they did. 0.06 seconds, then 0.05, then 0.04. Each blink felt less safe, like I was giving something access every time my eyes closed. I tried keeping them open as long as I could, but your body forces you to blink eventually. And each time I did, it was closer. No footsteps, no sound, just proximity. The space between frames wasn't empty anymore. It felt occupied, like something was standing in the gaps of reality, waiting for permission. Around 3 in the morning, one of the frames lasted longer than it should have, long enough for me to see it clearly. It was standing at the edge of my bed, its head tilted slightly. There were no eyes, or maybe there were, they just weren't visible. The outline shimmered faintly, like static trying to hold a shape, and then it was gone. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I think part of me was afraid that if I reacted, it would realize I could see it. The next day, I set up my webcam and recorded myself sitting at my desk. In the recording, I looked normal, tired, but unaware. Behind me, every 0.06 seconds, it appears, near the doorway, then closer, then directly behind my chair. In one frame, it's right beside my head, close enough that if it were solid, I would feel its breath. But I never react, because consciously, I never see it. If you play the footage normally, nothing is there. You look alone, completely safe. It only exists in the spaces too fast to notice. I tried deleting the files. They came back. I tried shutting off my devices. The reflection still showed something shifting behind me. I even covered the mirrors, but it doesn't need reflections anymore. Sometimes, when I blink, I feel something inches from my face, not touching, just waiting. Last night, I counted again. The interval wasn't 0.06 anymore. It was 0.03. It's speeding up, and I don't think it's attached to the footage. I think it attached itself to me. If you slow this video down, you might see it too. Just a single frame, just a flicker. But once you notice it, you won't be able to unsee it. And the next time you blink, pay attention to how long the darkness lasts. If it feels heavier than it should, if it feels occupied, don't ignore that, because once you see it, it doesn't stay between frames anymore.